could honestly say they are unfamiliar with Garfield? The orange lasagna-loving cat got his start in comic strip panels, but as his popularity grew, it spread to other forms of media: TV shows, amusement park rides, and yes, video games. In the early 90s, the Sega Genesis and Super Nintendo were at the top of the video game industry, so combined with Garfield's growing popularity, it only made sense to give him a game of his own on one of these gaming platforms. The Sega Genesis was the lucky recipient of the game, and in 1995, the gaming world received Garfield, Caught in the Act. Caught in the Act was first released on the Genesis console. The game begins with Garfield attempting to repair John's TV after accidentally breaking it, but he inadvertently gets sucked into the TV by a creature made of spare parts known as the Glitch. Garfield must make his way through TV Land in order to defeat the Glitch and find his way home. As far as platformers go, the game is enjoyable with slow, yet responsive controls, creative levels, and good music for the Genesis by Jeffrey Tavares and Dwight Stone. The one aspect that will immediately catch anyone's eye is the smooth animation of the in-game characters. Jim Davis, the creator of Garfield, lent his hand to draw the sprites, and it truly shows, giving the game an authentic feeling that makes it truly belong in the Garfield universe. A month after the release of the Genesis game, a version was released for the Sega Game Gear, although many simply dismissed it as a watered-down version of the Genesis game. By the end of 1995, the world had two versions of a well-animated and designed Garfield game, but there was a lot more going on behind the scenes. Though the final product was playable and reviews were generally positive, it didn't reach the full potential of what could have been. In fact, it wasn't even technically finished. So what happened? In actuality, the game could have been nearly double the size of the final product. A series of levels were cut from the final version of the game, and on top of that, several parts of the existing levels were cut as well. Believe it or not, the cut levels were actually playable at one point, all through the infamous Sega Channel. What was the Sega Channel? For those of you who might not be familiar with it, the Sega Channel was a subscription-based service that allowed you to sample games and preview other software on a monthly rotation, when Sega would add new games to the lineup. It's one of the earliest examples of a video game console having some kind of online functionality, although Sega Channel wasn't online in the traditional sense. The games were on a timer to be distributed, so when you selected a game to play, your Genesis would simply wait for the appropriate signal to be broadcast. The best part of the Sega Channel was undoubtedly the exclusive games. Gamers in North America had the chance to sample games that were never released there in cartridge form, with one of the most famous titles being Mega Man: The Wily Wars, which did see a physical release in Europe and Japan, which in turn allowed there to be reproduction cartridges made so North American gamers could finally play it. What does this all have to do with Garfield? Well, in addition to the original version of Caught in the Act being playable through the Sega Channel, another Garfield game was added, consisting of the cut levels from the original game. Fans have fittingly dubbed this game Garfield: The Lost Levels, as they are indeed lost to this day. Due to the way the Sega Channel worked, when the Genesis was powered off, all the downloaded game data was erased. This wasn't a problem with games like the Wily Wars, which were released in cartridge form, but Garfield: The Lost Levels never saw a physical release. And since it seemed to be more of the same of Garfield: Caught in the Act, it's likely no one thought to dump the ROM. To this day, the game remains lost, and no footage of it exists, not even a still image. The Lost Levels contained 3 levels that were removed from the final retail version of the game. The first of these levels was a snowy Viking-themed level called Bonehead the Barbarian. The second level was a parody of Robin Hood known as Slobbin Hood, and the final of the 3 cut levels is speculated to be a space level, though this is not confirmed. The game also included a cut segment of the Casablanca level, where Garfield rides atop a train. Although this part of the level was cut, it was shown in a screenshot on the box for the Sega Nomad. It's one of the only true images that proves that the cut levels exist, and yes, I tried playing the game on the Nomad, and the level isn't there. These levels are cut no matter what system you play them on. So what if the game had been released? It's safe to assume that due to the large size of the game, as well as the detailed levels and sprites, this could very well have been the second lock-on game released for the Sega Genesis. Sonic 3 and Knuckles used the lock-on system to allow the Sonic 3 portion of the game to be released earlier, with Sonic and Knuckles following a few months later. Garfield: Caught in the Act would have used the 2 cartridges as extra memory space to provide an even lengthier game to play through, and with as much charm and smooth animation as the game already had, it's clear this could have been another great classic for the Genesis. An enhanced version of the game for the ill-fated Sega 32X was also planned under the title Garfield and TV Land, but this fell through likely due to the unpopularity of the 32X add-on. It's possible that this version could have included all of the cut content, but this is only speculation, as the 32X version did not get far into development at all. To this day, Garfield the Lost Levels remains lost, and a ROM has not surfaced. Most Sega fans have moved on and accepted that this game will never be found, but all hope is not lost if you want to experience the 3 cut levels. Remember the Game Gear version that was released soon after the Genesis version? Most people simply dismissed it as a watered-down version of the Genesis game, but in actuality, the Game Gear version is much longer. Both Slobbin Hood and Bonehead the Barbarian are included in this version of the game, and although they are a graphical downgrade, they are playable here in their entirety. Even the third lost level, Alien Landscape, is present in the PC version of the game, known as Garfield in TV Land, just like the unreleased 32X version. So although these levels are not present in the Genesis version, gamers can rest assured that all 3 levels remain playable in another form. Although most Genesis collectors tend to overlook Garfield Caught in the Act, it remains as one of the most graphically impressive games on the Genesis, and the story of the Lost Levels remains to show the complete game that once existed. No matter what system you play it on, Garfield Caught in the Act is an underrated classic that truly helped cement Garfield's place in pop culture.